I wasn't supposed to be at that church. I hadn't been invited, and I wasn't wanted. My name had been scratched off the guest list in blue pen. Someone made sure I knew I didn't belong. Still, I came. I slipped into the very last pew of the small white Baptist church, hidden behind a column. I didn't wear black. I didn't cause a scene. I was there not for them, but for the truth. My sister Ivy looked beautiful, as always. Blonde, poised. The kind of daughter our mother called a perfect Southern lady. She walked down the aisle holding Mom's arm, not Dad's. He had died 6 years ago. They told people it was cancer. It wasn't. But that part of the story isn't mine to tell, not yet. The pastor stood beneath the floral arch and gave a short blessing. Daniel, the groom, waited in his gray suit, calm and still. He looked toward the back once. He saw me. That wasn't part of their plan. Then came the familiar line, "If anyone objects to this union, speak now or forever hold your peace." Silence. A cough. A baby stirred. Then Daniel raised his hand. No drama, no outburst. Just a quiet, steady gesture, like he was about to reach for water. The pastor paused. "Yes, son?" Daniel turned slightly to face the guests. "I'm not objecting," he said, "but I have something to read. It's a letter from someone who wasn't allowed to be here." The church stirred, whispers, side glances. Mom froze. She didn't turn around. Daniel held up the folded page. "It's from Ivy's sister. Her name is Miriam. Maybe you know her. Maybe you were told not to ask." Gasps, shifting in seats. Someone near me whispered, "I thought she moved to Chicago." I didn't move. Didn't raise my hand. Didn't cry. I just listened. As Daniel read my letter aloud, something shifted. In that moment, I wasn't the black sheep. I wasn't the unstable one or the girl who walked away. I was a voice they tried to erase. And someone had finally handed me the mic. This wasn't just a wedding. It was a reckoning. There was no single moment they cut me out. No screaming, no suitcase on the porch. It was quiet. Slow. Like mold creeping through walls. I was 25 when I called off my wedding. His name was Kyle, my mother's favorite. Not because he loved me, but because he looked good in church pictures. When I found out he'd cheated, I walked away. I thought I was brave. My mother thought I was embarrassing. "I already sent the invitations," she snapped. "What am I supposed to tell people?" I told her the truth. She said the truth made her look bad. No one came to check on me. Not even Ivy. Just one text, "Sorry it didn't work out. Mom's really upset." That was all. By Thanksgiving, my name wasn't even spoken. Later, I found out Mom told people I'd taken a mental health break. I hadn't. I was working 50 hours a week, living above a pharmacy, studying for my nursing license. But her story made me smaller, easier to dismiss. When Ivy graduated college, I came. Brought a gift, sat alone. Our mother saw me, didn't wave. When it was time for the family photo, a cousin politely told me it was just for the household. That picture ended up in Ivy's Christmas card. No trace of me. Still, I kept sending cards, birthday wishes, holiday notes. Sometimes with gift cards tucked inside. They were never answered. Later, I found out Mom threw them away. Sometimes she rewrapped the gifts and gave them to Ivy, saying they were from someone else, Aunt Beth, Megan, even the dog. In 2017, there was a family reunion. I wasn't invited. But I saw a photo online. Everyone in matching shirts. Whitmore strong, all together, always. The caption read, "Every branch, every voice, nothing missing. Except me." When Dad died in 2010, I heard from a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. No call. No obituary mention. He had been the only one who called me every Easter, quietly. Once, he sent me a book with a sticky note that read, "You're still mine." They buried him without me. After that, I stopped sending cards. Not out of anger, but because I realized I'd been written out of their story. They didn't just ignore me, they rewrote me. Like a paragraph that doesn't fit in the family newsletter, cut out and replaced with something prettier, easier to explain. But the problem with rewriting people is that sometimes they come back with their own version of the truth. And sometimes, someone else is willing to read it aloud. I didn't run away. I moved. I changed my name. I found a job. I started over. There's a difference. Some people disappear because they're lost. I disappeared because I was tired of fighting for a seat at a table where my name had already been crossed off the place card. I went north. Rented a small one-bedroom in Dayton, Ohio. It wasn't fancy, but it had windows that caught the morning light, and a coffee shop across the street that never asked questions. I worked long hours at a clinic, urgent care, sprained ankles, fevers, worried parents. Some days, the work was the only thing that reminded me I still mattered. I never told anyone where I was. Not because I didn't want to be found, but because no one was looking. The only connection I kept was with my father's church. He had served as a deacon for nearly 20 years, and I knew they were struggling after he passed. Every month, I sent a money order with no return address, signed only, for the mission work, in memory of JW. They never knew it was me. That felt safer, cleaner. Then, years later, a patient came in unexpectedly. She was pale, breathing shallow, complications after a minor procedure. We stabilized her, kept her overnight, and got her back on her feet. She was gracious, polite, and a little stubborn about the bill. She reminded me of someone. Ivy, if Ivy had softened with age. It wasn't until later, when I looked at the insurance paperwork, that I saw her last name, Whitmore. Daniel's mother. I said nothing. I didn't have to. A year later, I saw him. He walked into the clinic with his mother for a follow-up. He didn't recognize me at first. I wore a mask, but my name tag said Dr. M. Whitman. Close enough. His eyes narrowed. "Did you ever live in Kentucky?" he asked. I nodded. "Do you know the Whitmore family?" "I used to," I said. He didn't press, not then. But a week later, he came back alone. "You're Ivy's sister, aren't you?" I didn't answer right away. I studied him, waiting for the same look, the one my mother wore when people mentioned me. But it didn't come. "I just want to understand," he said. "They never talk about you." Ivy changes the subject, but there's something missing in their story. I can feel it. I told him a little, not everything, just enough. "I didn't leave the family," I said. "I stayed quiet while they told everyone I had." He shook his head. "I figured it was something like that. That should have been the end of it." But 2 weeks before the wedding, he came again. He waited for me outside the clinic, holding a paper bag with 2 coffees. "I'm not asking you to show up. I know you're not welcome, but if there's something you need said, something they've buried, I can say it for you." That night, I wrote the letter. It was short. No blame. Just facts. I wrote about the day Ivy showed up at my door, scared and shaking, months after starting college. I took her to a clinic across town. I waited in the parking lot. I held her hand. I never told anyone. Not when my mother blamed me for it. Not when she called me a disgrace. At the end of the letter, I wrote, "She didn't owe me thanks, but she doesn't get to forget me either." I folded the letter, sealed it in an envelope, and added something else, a small cardboard box filled with birthday cards, some still in their original envelopes, some with faded ink. All signed the same way. "To Ivy, love always, Miriam." The envelope arrived 2 weeks before the wedding. Cream-colored, gold trim, expensive paper. Ivy always liked things that looked like they came from a catalog. My name was on the address label. But when I opened it, I saw the line scratched out. Literally crossed off in blue pen. Beneath it, a handwritten note, 1 guest per family, immediate members only. They had sent it out of obligation, or maybe as a message. "You're not forgotten, just not wanted." I folded it and put it in the drawer, right beside the box of birthday cards. I didn't tell Daniel I was coming. He never asked for confirmation. But I knew what he meant when he said, "If you want your voice in the room." I'd let them control the story long enough. So, I drove down that morning. 3 hours on a quiet highway, the sun soft across the cornfields. I parked 2 blocks away, changed into a simple gray dress, and walked in alone. No one noticed. The church hadn't changed. Still white-paneled. Still smelling faintly of varnish and lilies. I sat in the last pew, behind a wide wooden column. I wasn't hiding. Not exactly. Just placing myself where they wouldn't see me, and where I could still see everything. Guests filed in. I recognized a few faces from my past. Thinner, older, grayer. They smiled and laughed, hugging Ivy, complimenting her dress. She looked beautiful. Of course she did. She always knew how to look the part. Then came my mother. She walked down the aisle on Ivy's arm, chin high, face radiant. She didn't glance around the pews. She never did. If she couldn't control the room, she ignored it. Daniel stood at the altar, calm and composed. He glanced toward the back of the church just once and gave the slightest nod. That was all I needed. The music faded. The pastor welcomed everyone, opened with a prayer. Ivy beamed. Daniel smiled. It all looked perfect. Then came the moment. If anyone here has cause to object to this union, the pastor said. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Laughter, soft and nervous. Daniel raised his hand. The laughter stopped. The pastor blinked. Yes, Daniel? Daniel stepped forward. Not looking at Ivy. Not looking at my mother. Just at the guests. I don't object, he said. But I do have something I need to say. It won't take long. He pulled out a folded piece of paper from his jacket. My letter. This is from someone who isn't here today, or rather, someone who was asked not to come. Ivy's sister, Miriam. A few heads turned. A murmur passed through the room. My mother went still. Some of you know her, some of you were told not to ask about her. I did ask, and what I learned deserves to be heard. He unfolded the letter and began to read. No dramatics. No raised voice. Just words. My words. Delivered in the stillest moment of the ceremony. This isn't about blame, he read. This is about remembering what's real. Families aren't built from pictures, or newsletters, or tidy introductions. They're built from what we carry, when no one is looking, when no one claps. The air turned thick. Ivy didn't move. But my mother did. She stood abruptly, her face pulled tight. This is not part of the ceremony, she snapped. This is not her moment. Daniel looked straight at her, calm, unshaken. You're right, he said. It's not her moment, it's mine. And I'm choosing to say thank you, to someone who should have been thanked a long time ago. Silence. Even the pastor didn't speak. I sat in the back, still and quiet. But for the first time in years, I wasn't invisible. Someone had said my name. And no one could take it back. Daniel folded the letter and tucked it into his jacket. He didn't say anything else. He didn't need to. The silence in the church wasn't angry. It was unsettled. Like people had just realized the ground beneath them wasn't as solid as they thought, and maybe never had been. Ivy didn't cry. She didn't grab Daniel's hand. She didn't run. She just stood there, blinking. Like someone hearing their own name in a story they didn't know they were in. The pastor cleared his throat gently and continued. Vows. Rings. A kiss that felt uncertain. But they got through it. I waited until the recessional began, until the music started and people stood and clapped. Then I slipped out the side door and into the gravel lot behind the church. I didn't need a scene. I didn't come for closure. But I heard her before I saw her. You really kept all of them? I turned. Ivy stood a few feet away, holding the box I'd sent. She clutched it to her chest, like something fragile. Or dangerous. She opened the lid and looked down. Dozens of envelopes. Some yellowed. One still had the sticker from the pharmacy above which I'd once rented a room. You kept sending these? She asked. Even after, she didn't finish. Even after you never answered, I said. Yeah, I did. She looked up, and for the first time, I saw her. Not the version from photos or family updates. But the girl who used to sneak into my room during thunderstorms. Who borrowed my sweaters and never gave them back. Why? She asked. Because I didn't leave you, I said. I left them, there's a difference. She nodded slowly, then shook her head like she wasn't sure which direction to land on. I don't know what to say. You don't have to, I told her. Just stop pretending I was never here. She looked down again, fingers brushing the top envelope. I don't remember this birthday. You were turning 21, I said. I sent you a card with 21 $1 bills taped inside. I thought it was clever. You never got it. Her lips tightened, but she didn't cry. That story Daniel read, was that the clinic? I nodded. You asked me not to tell anyone, she whispered. I didn't, until now. You shouldn't have had to be the one. I was the only one who stayed in the car. She closed the box. We stood there, two women with the same last name, who hadn't shared a meal in a decade. The air wasn't hostile. Just heavy. Like a door that hadn't opened in so long. The hinges had fused. I didn't mean for them to erase you, she said. I know, I replied. But it made things easier for them. So they let it happen. She didn't answer, just turned the box over in her hands. I'm not asking you to fix anything, I said. Or to believe everything I've said. But you have the cards now, the dates, the handwriting, it's all there. She looked at me, really looked. I can't promise anything, she said softly. I'm not here for promises, I said. Just the truth. She nodded, then turned and walked back toward the church. For the first time, she didn't look over her shoulder. But I knew she'd read every word. I didn't stay for the reception. I left before the rice, the cake, the photos. No one stopped me. No one called out. And for the first time, that didn't hurt. It felt like peace. I walked to my car, the same way I came. Alone. Steady. On my way out, I passed the guest book table. Cards stacked in baskets, bouquets of white hydrangeas. I paused, reached into my bag, and placed something beside the flowers. A framed photo from 1998. One of the few where we were all smiling, Mom, Dad, Ivy, and me at a county fair, standing in front of a giant stuffed bear. None of us had one. The original photo had been trimmed years ago. My corner, cut cleanly away. I'd found it once, tucked in a drawer at my mother's house, the last time I was allowed inside. But I had the missing piece. I'd kept it, like I kept everything. That morning before the ceremony, I taped it back in. Not perfectly. The edges didn't match. But it was whole again. On the back, I wrote in small, even print. I still remember where I stood. I didn't expect anyone to frame it. Or even keep it. But I left it anyway. Some things deserve to be seen, even if only once. Later that week, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. But I recognized the handwriting. Inside was a single note in Ivy's neat, slanted script. From now on, I won't let them tell it wrong again. That was all. No apology. No backstory. Just 7 words. It was more than I expected. And exactly enough. I placed it in the box with the birthday cards, the ones with fading ink and curled corners. All still signed the same way. To Ivy. Love always, Miriam. I didn't keep them to prove anything. Not out of bitterness. I kept them because they were real. Because I was real. They had told the story without me for so long. Told it to neighbors, cousins, strangers at weddings and funerals, a version that was easier to carry. But now the truth had been spoken. Not loudly. Not with rage. Just, clearly. And once something's spoken, you can't unspeak it. I didn't come to ruin a wedding. I came to make sure they could never again pretend I wasn't part of it.